MMR fund. It's really, really good.
I don't know what that MMR fund is, but I'm assuming he's got a follow up to this.
Well, you have to ask what the MMR fund is.
What's the MMR fund, Ben?
It's the Make Me Rich fund.
Yeah, there we go. I'm out. Get me out.
All right, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the 1% Podcast. I'm your host, Vin, and
I'm Shane.
And today we're going to talk about mental health. How health is the greatest wealth. How sometimes the best thing to do is to just go through it. Now, before we get into that, Shane has his own favorite topic that he would love to talk about. So we're actually going to have two expert conversations today. One being the mental health side, which I'll probably lead for the most part. But Shane definitely has some stuff to say, so he'll come on in. But then there's going to be one part, which we're about to get to, which is just going to be me sitting here silently and nodding, which is Shane is getting out of cards. For those of you that have been following us for a little bit, you know Shane is a big card guy. He likes cards. He plays with cards. He thinks about cards. He sells cards. I've heard that he takes naps next to cards, and so he's got this involvement with cards. But he's out. He's done. He's like a drug addict saying, "No more. Cards are done." Now Shane's going to tell us why he's transitioning out of cards. Why now is the time to be a quitter, not a winner. Shane, tell us.
So unfortunately, the hobby of card collecting as a business and reselling as a business is, in my opinion, going to be forever hurt by the news that just came out, and which is the main reason why I'm getting out. But everything that Vin said is an understatement. I co-created a card game called Interstellar. It
was quite stellar.
I've been into collecting cards even since I was a little kid, from Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon all the way into now my adulthood, which I'm still into those. Sports. Love sports cards, things like that.
Hey, wait, real quick. What was your favorite Yu-Gi-Oh! Card?
You know, my brother came over and we were opening up a box. And, I actually still have some cards right here. If you actually remember Yu-Gi-Oh! So here's, some classic cards. Raigeki, Dark Hole, Jinzo. But
Dark Hole. It's my ex-girlfriend.
I'd probably have to say my favorite card is probably the Dark Magician. I think it's just a good old classic one. So
I like the Dark Magician, but I would still choose Joey's Black Eyes Red Dragon.
Red Eyes Black Dragon. Yeah.
Don't let him know.
Classic. No, I agree. All right. So enough nerding out for this one. But so I'm deep into the hobby. Like, we're talking roots with connections of people that have $5 to $10 million connections. I know them all. I've been in this for a very long time. And so we've been talking about this exact subject that's been hot this last week. So somebody, I don't know how long ago it was, but it just came and just went viral, bought a CT scanner and essentially was very tech savvy, turned that basic CT scanner into essentially a card x-ray machine where you can take any booster box, sports, Pokemon, Arcana, Disney, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and you can look what's inside it. So you can literally see what's going to be in the box by just moving the actual scan, and it actually outlines the holo. You can see the name, and you can see if you have any hits in it. I know people that have a very big business by selling sealed packs because you don't know what's in it. So now that this exists, I just know I'm seeing the writing on the wall that this is going to get worse, that the accessibility is going to get more and more, especially for people. And there's going to be a lot more scams that are going to be coming out. And this person that does this, you can go to him and he pays, it's $65 per pack or box, and you can see what's inside. You can see your contents. There's videos on this all over YouTube of how he does it, of testing it out live. And it's an actual business. And that kills the entire hobby. Imagine going there with, a $20,000 box, and now me looking in there to see if I have a top hit, to see if I want to open it or not. First off, that ruins the fun of everything. Second of all, it kills the resellability, right? Imagine now me knowing that I don't have a top hit in this box. So now I'm going to sell it. So the more and more that this comes to fruition and comes to light, I think it's going to really kill the hobby. Now, Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic and sports have been doing this for a very long time. Are they going to change their booster boxes in the future? Probably. But what about the companies that have been out of business? Wizards of the Coast was the original creator of Pokemon. That company no longer exists. So that means all of their original boxes that have a huge premium, as more of up to $250,000 for one box, that's the premium. That company's out of business. It will never be reprinted. It will never be done. So what happens to all those boxes when Logan Paul has them all and goes and scans all of them and says, ooh, look what I got in here. Or you know what? I don't have one in here. Now I'm going to resell it. So I have been, as you kind of heard from Vin, but I've been collecting for a very, very long time. I know this doesn't do any justice, but if you saw the rest of my office, you'd be like, holy crap, Shane, you've been collecting for quite some time. And I told my wife it's done. I don't want to be, on fire when everybody is selling everything and getting out of the hobby. This is just my opinion on the matter. I'm sure everybody has different point of views, as I've talked to a couple of their big resellers that did have different points of views, but did see mine as well. It's just, I'm out. I want to focus on other things at this time. I mainly invested in cards as an investment, not because, I just wanted all these things. They were an investment. They were a good investment, a healthy investment. But I don't see that continuing down the prosperous lane with this technology that's come out.
I see what you're saying. I'm sure our listeners also see what you're saying. I don't know what the other guys are saying, the other resellers. I could potentially see it as so many of these companies know the importance of the resale market in cards that I can't imagine they won't do something about this. Now, to your point, there are companies like Wizards of the Coast who will never be able to do anything about it because they don't exist. So I think it could definitely make the card market a little wonky, at least for a short time. But I do see it evening out and getting back to another space in the future. So I think too, people might still be willing to pay for cards because of the fact that they're not all going to do that. I mean, I'm sure there's some people that are going to want to do that, but then you have like the purists. Like there's always people out there that are against that, right? Like I used to know people like after I would beat a video game, I would like to put in cheat codes. And I knew people who were just wildly against cheat codes. They were such a purist. There's no point to playing if you're not going to do it the right way and the way it's supposed to be done and like go through it. So I feel like there's probably going to be people like that, the fanatical purist of the card world, who are going to be like, no, you don't scan cards. That's ridiculous. Like, how dare you?
So you're absolutely right, and there's a trust factor, especially in this type of game, where I'm trusting you that this hasn't been done. But let me ask you from a business standpoint: if I had hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars worth of inventory, and I knew that I had a very premium box that's no longer been made anymore, and if there was one particular card in there, which is always if there's one card in there that's graded very high, it's worth more than the box. So if I'm a business owner and I have these, why wouldn't I not tell anybody? Go fly to this person, say, I want you to scan all my boxes. Oh, I would never do this, yada, yada, yada. And then find out what exactly I have in all these and then flash sale them. And then open the ones that do have those in there. So I get what you're saying integrity wise, but I just feel like the vast majority are greedy and see money. And I think it's eventually going to transform into scams, distrust, bad taste. Now, I'm not speaking for anybody else besides me. These are just my viewpoints. This is what I personally think may happen. It's the reason why I'm getting out. I don't feel comfortable and confident anymore, especially as I buy very big items, expensive items, right? And especially sealed stuff. I just don't feel confident that if I ever do decide to open, which I don't usually open my sealed stuff, that it's going to be already peeked through, right? It's always going to be in the back of my mind now, even from people that I trust.
Little does Shane know, I already scanned that box behind him. It's worthless.
Could be. It could be. You may be right. It could be.
I've also scanned his brain. There's a lot of things in there, but none of them are cards.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. It'll drive you insane. I assure you.
I get what you're saying though. I think that you're to your point. So Shane's more on the cautious business owner. You know, to his point, he's looking at cards as it's not just a hobby for him, and I think that's probably a big part of it. I think the people that are going to be wildly or vastly unaffected by this, are the people that look at it more as a hobby. Like
Right.
they don't care what's in it; they want the thrill. Because if you think about it, the so the way the mind works, right, is that it gets a level or a dopamine rush from
Right.
gambling.
Sure.
That's why video games, for instance, I don't know how familiar you are with modern day video games, but a lot of modern day video games have components called loot crates, which are basically gambling in a video game. You're going to go spend real money. You're going to buy this crate. There's going to be a whole bunch of lights and a flash, and then you get some random items. And occasionally there's a percentage to get like a legendary whatever, legendary item, legendary skin, legendary character. It doesn't matter what it is. But that small percentage chance is what keeps people in a dopamine rush. And so, much like having these sealed packs, if somebody's doing it because they do it for that reason, they're not gonna care about scanning it. They want the rush of what's in there when they open it.
See, but
And
just
so
to that point, though, if
yeah,
even for that dopamine rush, even for the regular general hobbyist that wants to open packs, there's not going to be one slight chance that if you're buying packs from me, that saying, okay, then here's my box of packs, pick whichever one you want, that I haven't scanned this $20,000, $50,000, $10,000 box, knowing personally that there's not any hits in there, big hits. That's not going to
right.
ever run through your mind. See, that's never run through anybody's mind. And
Well,
that's
see,
what
that's the thing though that I'm getting at is that not everyone's thinking at it in a business term. You think of it like that because you bought it with the purpose of making an ROI. Like you
sure.
want to gain something from this. There are
Right.
people out like you mentioned Logan Paul. Logan Paul's got so much money, he could go spend hundreds of $1,000s on packs, and if he makes nothing from it, it doesn't even impact him, right? So
It's not the point, though. But yes, I get what you're saying.
but I think that there are some people out there that are really just doing it for that hobby effect, and they're not really looking at it like they have to get something out of it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
there are some people that'll be a lot like you, and some people that won't care. I think I could be wrong.
I, and you're absolutely right. And that was the conversations I had with a couple of my friends that was like, look, at the end of the day, it comes down to a trust factor, right? I'm never going to CT my boxes, scan their boxes because I've built up a reputation and I'm going to honor that reputation. And I'm like, I see what you're saying, but is the community going to reciprocate to that? Because you damn well know these people, these businesses that have millions and hundreds of thousands of dollars invested, why would they not scan it? Why would they not pay $60, $65 to scan their box to see what they have and then just sell it off? Like, why wouldn't you? As a business owner, and I'm not trying to be anything against the community or to my people that buy from me. It's just, why wouldn't you do that? That should, if you can, and that's what goes in my mind, right? You may be a great, honest person, but it's just, that's always going to be in the back of my mind. Anyways, we're going around in circles again. I get what you're saying, but there's a lot of people in Pokemon and sports. There's so much money into this hobby.
Mm.
So I don't know what they're probably going to do something about newer sets, but there's some things that they just can't do. There's like, what can you do with a tops company that was made in the 50s? You can't do anything.
I tell you what, because I don't care about cards, I would be the guy that would probably scan.
There's another reason. That's what I'm saying.
Like
Right.
like I
I
I
think
don't care about it. So I don't care about, oh, I want the thrill of opening a pack myself. I don't it wouldn't matter to me.
yeah, and I think that's what it is. It's some people view things differently. I view things as a business model here, and the market's fine, so I'm going to get out while I can, and decide where I want to put my money into the next investment.
You should invest in the what is it? The MMR fund. It's really, really good.
I don't know what that MMR fund is, but I'm assuming he's got a follow up to this.
Well, you have to ask what the MMR fund is.
What's the MMR fund? Ben?
It's the Make Me Rich fund.
Yeah, there we go. I knew it was something like that. It's just I feel silly for even asking that question.
I I'm also selling, for anyone who's curious, I'm selling a book. It's $100,000. There's only one copy, and the name of the book is How I Made $100,000 Selling Books.
Deal.
So
So I'll
yeah,
take that.
feel free, go get it. You'll learn
All
a
right.
lot of great things.
I'm already buying it.
It's gonna be phenomenal. You're gonna love it.
I can't wait to read it.
I bet. Oh man. So
Anyways, I think that was earth-shattering news to, the whole entire existence of hobbies. If you do have time, you should look at the videos, though. It's pretty insane what they can do.
I mean, it sounds interesting. So for all of you out there that are looking for a side hustle, go buy sealed packs, go get them scanned, make some money, then get out just like Shane.
That's definitely not how I did it or how I would recommend doing it. Don't do any of that. That
No, no,
defeats
no. That's
the
me
purpose.
with this new information. That's my recommendation to the listeners.
No. You'll see all over for card enthusiasts, stop the scans. Nobody likes cheaters, but that's what I'm saying. It's like at the end of the day, it's like it's a business. If I'm going to go spend, $500,000 on these boxes, why wouldn't I go pay $65 to see what's inside it? It just doesn't make sense. It's a
Right.
business. Business owners think like that. They're analytical like that, right?
You know what'd be funny actually? You know how like they have those whole live streams of people opening like packs and boxes and things?
Absolutely.
They Now they could just create a live screen of somebody scanning packs the entire time. They don't actually open anything. They just scan.
Right.
They're just scanning the whole packs.
I think it's gonna be. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm worried about. Is it's gonna be more accessible. They're gonna start printing these. They're gonna start. You'll be able to buy them, and it's not $150,000, which that's how much it costs. So imagine that too. Like imagine spending 100 to. It's anywhere. It's like a range from 100 to $1 million for these high evolved CT scanner X-ray card machines.
Oh, who the hell is going out there spending $150,000 on scanners? Not the average person.
When you have a $5 million collection, that's nothing.
That's different. Yeah.
But
But I think the average person doesn't have a $5 million collection.
But see,
That
you're seeing things so blatantly black and white. Who do those five that person? What I'm sure I'm not going to name names. There's a couple of people that have 5, 10, $20 million collections. Who are those people selling to? The average Joes. They're selling those $200 packs, those $300 packs, the $10,000 booster boxes, right? Those are the people they're selling to, and they don't have to tell anybody that they CT scanned it. They could play along. They could. Why wouldn't you do that? Like that's my thing. Because of integrity. Because of what? No, it's a smart business move to go take a plane trip, go scan all of your stuff, stand there and watch while everything's being scanned, see what you got. If you have big hits, keep them personally, sell the rest. That's just smart business now that it's available. I'm not saying that people think that way. I'm just, why wouldn't you do that? Right? Integrity comes into play, sure. But at the end of the day, it's a business. You do this to make money, and that's the best way to make money. That's what's going to happen.
That's fair. I guess to the point that you're bringing up though, is now I could kind of almost see it as like it would just be a one-sided thing though. The average person isn't going to be able to get this. The person that's going to get this is probably the person who would have a very vast collection, millions of dollars. But then even that's a few and far between amount of people, right? So to
But I'm
your
talking
point,
about the people they sell to.
no, I understand. I'm saying to
Right.
your point, like it's going to be a very monopolized market because you're going to have the people that already have the collections and have the money that could afford maybe if they go get their own for 150,000. Your average Joe that's buying a $200 box isn't buying a $150,000 scanner. But I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
That's fine. That's what I'm saying. But those people who have a following of 250,000 people who buy from them regularly,
Yeah.
right? And now they're never pulling top hits.
Right.
Anyways, right? There's an integrity thing here. I don't want to dwell on it. I'm not trying to pull anybody
Well,
out of the
I
hobby.
think you
I
should have
love the
mentioned that at
hobby.
the start. Because when
I,
you're talking about the scanner, no, not the price. When you're talking about the scanner, I'm imagining it's like a $25 thing and everybody's going to go out and buy one.
so you can scan this packs with this guy for $65 per. So
Yeah,
you can do that.
but you got to get it to him and all that other crap.
Right, but you could also fly to him, stand there, and like oversee that it's all being done properly and ethically. Yes, so the average Joe's not doing it, but you see where my point is coming across from these.
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Right, it's hard to trust a community now that this technology exists, and it's just like I just don't see it getting better now that this technology exists. That we could see through sealed boxes, for crying out loud, and see like the hollow pattern and the names. It's nuts. So I'm like, I'm out. I'm out. Get me out. I don't want anything to do with it anymore.
Shane wants
It's
out.
just, it's freaking nuts, man. It's freaking nuts.
He doesn't like the black hole that is the card community now.
So I'm very passionate about this, and it's unfortunate. It's been bothering me the last couple of days, and it's the second time I get to fully vent about it, outside of my wife and a couple of my higher end buddies that do this for a living.
Which brings us to our next point: mental health.
Amen.
What a great smooth transition! That transition was as smooth as velvet and peanut butter. So let's talk about
Chunky
it. No, not chunky peanut butter. Silky smooth. the silky smooth peanut butter. Mental health is, I think it's interesting because, what I've come to find is that mental health actually comes in many ways. I don't believe that mental health is just therapy, coaching, or mentoring. I think that's how I typically approach it. That's how I've made my livelihood. However, mental health can be so much more than that. It could be physical activity. It could be meditation. It could be breathing. It could be yoga. It could be a good workout. It could be, I don't know, punching something. It could be venting about cards. It could be playing cards. It could be playing cards before things went wrong with cards. It could also be playing cards after things went wrong with cards. There's so many different ways to twist mental health. And so one of the things that I want to talk about specifically when it comes to mental health, which, by the way, listeners, is one of the top trending searches. And to be fair, if you've ever looked at the stats or recently looked at the stats, there's 70%. This is a stat I saw. There's 70% of Gen Z in therapy currently in the U.S. In the U.S. I don't know about the world.
Gen Z?
Gen Z.
70%?
70%.
Oh my gosh. I mean,
and there's also just as many that are still struggling and reporting struggling with mental health, which means to me that there is a mental health crisis on our hands. Now, I believe that there is a mental health crisis on our hands, not even because of any of the other things that I just listed. I think it goes even deeper than that. I think the bigger issue is that people struggle to take ownership and accountability. I think that there are people out there that have very little capability to choose and determine the destiny of their own life. And that's what makes people stressed out. And I've seen it 10 trillion times. I've seen it through working with thousands of people. Hell, I still see it nowadays with some of the clients that I get. There are some of my clients that literally do not want to take responsibility for certain things and do not want to change their lives. And it is frustrating as hell. And that's why I stopped doing traditional therapy. Because the average person, and I hope to all of you listeners that this podcast has been inspiring you to be more than the average person, but the average person just wants to sit there and vent and doesn't actually want to do anything about it. And that saddens me because I know what it's like to be that way, because I was that way a long time ago when I lived in victimhood. And now I am the way where if anything is going wrong in my life, I have a responsibility, a duty, and an obligation to do something about it. And if I can't, then honestly, there's no point in being stressed over it. So Shane, I could probably talk a lot on this, but I would love for the listeners to find somebody who's a little more relatable. Just because I am the expert and you are the Joe. What is your main experiences with mental health and what helps you, and what have been some things that you've learned that has really given you a great perspective on life?
Well, I feel like you go through different stages, and we've all experienced this and are experiencing this. As a teenager, I would say my escapes were video games. That was my whole escape to life. Actually, at that point, it was computer games, which was Counter-Strike, Unreal Tournament, and
my God. I miss Unreal Tournament. That was such a freaking good. I can't believe they stopped making that game. It was so good.
It was. Same with Counter-Strike, obviously. Was, classic OG, and then it was the original Dota from Frozen Throne.
Warcraft 3 custom game.
Yep. So, anyways, that was my mental escape. And then in my 20s, it was a very dark time. And, I turned to, some things that I regret, but alcohol and some other relievers were able to assist me because I was in a hole. I was, you know,
Black hole.
I didn't want to show who I really was to anybody. And the only thing is, and it was just, to be honest, it was a band aid. It wouldn't make anything better. It would honestly just make me numb. And, you know, I met my wife through all those troubling times. And then I've been sober from the other things, not alcohol. I, you know, enjoy a beverage from time to time, but
Average.
uh, I've been sober since December 30 or January 1st of 2011. So I'm proud to say that. Anyways, I think where I'm at now, and I've tried a lot of different things, but I'd say the biggest thing as far as my mental health is escaping and doing light meditation, having alone time, taking breathers, kind of examining how everything is currently going, whether it's stressed or anger. I still feel that my best way of handling things has always been by myself, where it's less crowded. And, you know, that's why my office is the furthest away from everybody, including the two kids. But that's the best way that I can problem solve. And that's the best way that I can handle situations is by myself, meditating, clearing my head, you know, saying woosah, not saying woosah, but you get the idea. That's really what's helped me out. And it's been a very long struggle for the last 20 years, and I'm still learning, and it doesn't help all the time, but you know, it gets me by and it works for me. Um, I don't know if I'm in a position to give any sort of advice, but you know, hopefully that story relates to some people. And you know, sometimes it's just nice to be alone, even though you don't want to be alone. And even if you're battling demons, my best solution, and this is not advice, but my best solution was getting alone and thinking about things, analyzing the whole situation, and then and dealing with it the best way that I knew how. And if I didn't know how to deal with it, and this is the honest truth, I would reach out to somebody who I thought would be able to assist me, whether it's a family or a friend or even a therapist.
To be fair, Shane also learns a lot from our podcasts. So this is one of the places you should tune in if you're trying to grow mentally, emotionally,
Absolutely.
spiritually, physically, all of that good stuff. You know, Shane's funny because Shane and I have already recounted many of the similarities within our life, from the video games, all the same games too. We played all the same games. We just They just didn't have the internet. Otherwise, we might have met sooner. um, so we played all the same games. We kind of went the same way. I actually was drinking quite a bit in my, I think I was 19. I can't remember. I had my brother's ID. My brother's 7 years older than me, but the funny thing is, I always looked older than my brother. So my brother has like a younger face. He never had facial hair. Like he would always shave it. And then here I am. I'm a guy, like I work out. I got this, scruffy kind of beard, and so I would pull up to the bar with this photo and this ID, and it's a real ID, so it would always scan and all that. And they just look at it and they look at me. I'd be like, that's me at 17. Meanwhile, I was literally 18 or 19 at the time. And they'd be like, oh yeah, okay, fair enough. And they'd let me in. And because my brother's also skinnier than me, and he doesn't work out. So it's like, you assume somebody just had a glow up, I guess. But I made friends with these kids who were like 23, 24, because I just got into college, and we kind of clicked, and they liked partying, man. They liked going out. I mean, there were so many nights that like it was just shot after shot after shot with a beer and then a shot. And then, oh man. I mean, some nights I was just sitting there because I couldn't stand. And then there were some nights I had to get carried out of the bar because I couldn't walk. There was one night in particular that was quite funny. I was sitting on a chair because I couldn't stand, and a girl was dancing in front of me while I was standing, and it knocked me into the chair, and I couldn't get up. And so, um, but that was a part of life where I was also actually just in my state of depression and anxiety and trying to fit in and trying to be cool. And I think one of the things that people need to be aware of when they're going through something mentally is like, what are you doing and why? I could safely say that as I just analyzed those moments, I wasn't drinking because I wanted to. I wasn't drinking because I even really thought it was fun. I was drinking and going out because I was trying not to deal with the other things that were going on, which was namely my internal problems. You see, people have this tendency to go external when there's too much internal. And the funny thing Shane said before, which I agree with, I actually like to do a lot of my own stuff, like by myself. My girlfriend gets very annoyed at me, actually quite frequently, because she feels like she should have access to my brain when I'm upset. she's like, well, what's wrong? And I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. And she's like, why? I'm supposed to be the person that you trust. And I'm like, I do trust you. I just don't want to talk about it because it will help me figure it out if I just go through it and figure it out. And it has nothing to do with her. I think she'd give sound advice. Sometimes I don't need the sound advice. I need my sound mind. There is a very popular quote, and I can't specifically remember who the philosopher was or who said it, but he said that all of man's problems could be solved if he would just spend but 30 minutes with himself alone in a room. And I believe that. So many people avoid looking inwards, and that's where all the problems come in. And that's kind of bringing us full circle here of what I was talking about at the start of this part, where mental health is on a rise, or mental health crisis is on a rise. People are getting more help, but seemingly they're not getting better. And I can't help but think it's because in today's day and age, so many people aren't willing to take responsibility of their lives. So many people are not willing to look at even things that happen to them and find a level of ownership and responsibility. Like they'll be like, well, why'd that person do that? It's like, who cares? Who cares why they did what they did? It doesn't even matter. It could have purely been because they hated you and hoped that you would die as to why they did that. And that still doesn't matter. What matters is what you choose to make of the moment and what you will do in the moments thereafter. That really, really matters. And so my personal development journey was one of that. It was really one of what I call self-mastery. It was one of, I need to figure out how I can take more control over my life and what that looks like for me to do it. So I think the biggest aspects of the biggest things that people really need to learn is just how to sit with themselves, how to really go inwards and look at the things that they're trying to avoid, or like acknowledge that you're avoiding some crap. You know you're playing video games too much because you're avoiding something. You know you're watching porn because you're avoiding something. You know you're drinking or doing drugs because you're avoiding something. Like, it's so blatantly obvious. And that's another problem. All of the distractions we're hyper aware we're using as distractions because we don't want to deal with them. Like, you're actually actively choosing worse things because you're so aware of the problem you don't want to deal with. Think about that. That's pretty funny to me. So I would say to all of you people out there that are listening, if you're struggling, just ask yourself how you could redefine what you're struggling with. Ask yourself, what could you do differently? Acknowledge it'll probably be hard, and then give yourself some grace to try and execute on it, because that's the only way you're going to actually start changing your life. There's one last piece that I would really, really also advocate for, which is be conscious of who you're choosing in your corner. Like, definitely, as Shane said, seek out support if you need it, but make sure that you have a good fit, whether it's a friend, a family, a coworker, a business partner, it doesn't matter, therapist, coach. When I was younger, my therapist, Bill, was a great guy, very nice, very kind, could not help me at all. And I'll never forget what it was like going to therapy with him. I would go in, I would sit on the couch, I'd vent about my life for 20, 25 minutes, maybe, which was about half the session. And I would just be fuming. Life sucked, and I believed it so. And after I would vent, I'll never forget, he would look at me, he would crinkle his nose, and he wore glasses, so his glasses would pop up a little as he furrowed his brow. Yeah, sort of, Shane. And then he would just squint, and he would go, so what else is new? I'd be like, what? Dude, I just told you how crappy I think my life is for the past 25 minutes, and your question is, what else is going on? I think I summed it up.
So some people are bad at their jobs.
You know, and it's funny because as good intentioned as Bill was, and I think this is really important, by the way, if you guys are looking into like, getting coach, therapist, whoever, you have to look at what they do. I liked Bill. I thought he was a great guy. He was referred to me, and I trusted the referral source. And Bill was a very genuine, nice guy. However, Bill also spent his full-time job was being a school social worker in an autistic school for kids K to 5. Most of these kids are nonverbal. Most of these kids don't communicate. Most of these kids don't even move, like they're bound to wheelchairs or whatever the case. So Bill didn't have, aside from his private practice, he didn't have tons and tons of experience, at least at that point in his life, working with individuals in a psychotherapeutic area, right? He was mostly sitting there doing school social work with autistic children who already couldn't speak, but even if they were verbal, didn't really understand that either. So always look at the qualifications if you're seeking out help. Look at, like, what have they done? Where have they been? And I maintain that as long as you feel that there's an alignment there and you feel like this person has the experience you're seeking, you could really get some good help and support. So just make sure that you're vetting if you're really looking for support in your mental health journey.
I really don't have too much more to add. My the one statement I was going to say before you said that was just know that you don't have to be alone if you are battling things or you don't know how to handle certain situations. Is to seek some help. There's nothing wrong with reaching out, but vetting that candidate and making sure that they can assist you, you need to find that out pretty quickly.
Yeah. You know, I think that could be a good question that we could also answer before we wrap it up for the listeners. Shane, if you're seeking help or support, what do you look for in that person?
So I've gone through a couple of different therapists. I've gone through different financial advisors, and I want to make this comparison real quick. I never go with a financial advisor who preaches things that they're not currently invested into. So I think that's a good rule of thumb, is that if your therapist is just saying, yeah, okay, so what else is new? And they're not actually helping, they're not practicing what they're preaching, they're not living a full, extensive, healthy life, that's probably not somebody that I want to have somebody coaching me. So I think vetting them, me asking questions before choosing my therapist, health coach, business coach, financial advisor, anybody that wants to do business with me, I need to find out a little bit about them, the path that they're on. And that's by simple just asking questions. Then before I go with you, tell me a little bit about you. How long have you been doing this? What are you doing personally? What are you doing financially if it's an investment thing? So there's nothing wrong with vetting. So it's fine to take in the actual, because therapists are mainly all going to ask about you and find out more about you. But flip it on them. Find out who they are. Find out if this is going to be a good fit. There's nothing wrong, and they'll actually like it too. They want to know if this is going to be a good fit too. They want to know if they can help you out too. But you not being completely honest, which is not asking questions, is it's going to save you a lot of time, energy, and money.
You know what's funny is that as therapists, we are trained to flip that, like as you said, and a lot of them, I don't want to speak for other therapists. I don't think a lot of them appreciate it though, because we're taught to always flip it. Like you'll be like, well, how long have you been a therapist? And you might say something along, well, why does it matter how long I've been a therapist? Like that's literally what we're trained to do, because it's the idea of like, oh, well, people are typically just kind of projecting their own stuff. So keep it off of you so that you could get them to reflect back on themselves. But to that point, I think it would be important for people that are looking or trying to vet is like to say, well, it's important to me because I'm really looking for a qualified person that I think can support me. And
it's just being real.
What'd you say?
It's just being real with somebody.
Yeah. And like I think that's important, and here's a funny thing, which you guys could also do, by the way. And I think this would actually be hilarious. Maybe this is something we should start doing, actually. Everyone who's listening, if you're going to go find a therapist, please do this and let me know the outcome. When I had interviewed to become a therapist at multiple jobs, they would always give us a case study. And I would typically have to sit down with the CEO or the director or whoever was like going to be my leader, right? And I would have to go through what I would do to handle this case that just came into the clinic. And so they'd be like, hey, this is Shane. He has severe acute anxiety. He's been struggling with depression. His mom just died. His business is on the rocks. Like, how would you handle this person's, case? And I'd be like, oh, wow. Okay, well, this is what I would probably do, and this is how I might go. And, mind you, these are the cases they've already dealt with, so they know the answers. So they're just looking to see if you have the similar thought process. But you could kind of do that with yourself. Hey, Vin, it's great to meet you. I'm interested in getting a therapist. I see you're one. How would you help somebody who deals with anxiety? What would be the process you would walk them through? Like literally have someone interview for you, challenge them to do a case study in front of you. How would you help someone with anxiety? And if they're like, well, I would just kind of sit there and listen and reflect back on you, you could decide if that's something you would find helpful or not, and then you could move on to the next. So I think qualify your people, give them a case study, and then see if you feel that it's a good fit. You also have to like the person's energy, so make sure that that's a thing too.
I agree. Yeah, the vibes got to be right if we're gonna go on the Gen Z. Got to be the vibes.
Oh man, what is that neck thing you just did? What was that? Oh my god, how do you do it? It's so strange.
You got it. You got it. It's pretty
Yeah,
good.
all right.
I just got a long neck, you know.
I'm like a giraffe. I'm coming. It's go time.
It's not giraffes.
It's go
yeah,
time.
it's go time.
For those of you that
joke.
don't,
Exactly.
for those of you that don't know, I said I could fight a giraffe, and I maintain that I could do it still. I have a theory, so maybe one day, like when I'm super rich, we could see if we could orchestrate a giraffe fight.
PETA, I hope you're not listening. But on that note, we're gonna call it, guys. Vin's gonna end it out here.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us on the 1% podcast again. I'm your host, Vin, and
I'm Shane.
And we hope that you continue to support. Please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. Let us know if you think you could fight a giraffe, what you're doing mental health wise. Are you getting in or out of cards? Anything from this episode, please feel free to share your thoughts. We'd love to hear them, and we will always respond. Other than that, we look forward to seeing you again on the next episode of the 1% podcast.